Great, great. So thank you for having me. Thank you for Nikki. We've met several times in TEDx community, and so I think first I will introduce myself. Who am I? What I'm doing during the past couple of years, and also my experiment, kind of future learning experiment in the past 10 years. What I do. And I think also we can have some questions if you have. I know that the group is very diverse from different corner of the world. We have each of us have a different perspective to see, a global like perspective to see. So I actually, as I said, I met Nikki at TEDx. I think it's 2004, 14, 15. So at the TED conference. And at that time, I'm also a TEDx ambassador in China, which helped the community grow in China. So before that, I grew up in a like educational family. My parents are teachers. My grandpa is also a teacher, so they have a very high like expectation on education. So I've I follow the like traditional way, examinations kind of things. But in I think in when I was 14. So there's path in China. You you graduate from senior school and then you can choose to go to high school and university, the normal path. And the other way is you go to some technical school, which like German is very good. They have their tech like a track. So I choose the second ways. I joined in like art school and then became a designer. I graduated in 2001. So and get a job as a designer. So I have 7 years as a logo design. So design for fabric, um, like Nike kind of things, help them to transform their ideas from paper digital to fabric for clothes. So, but during that time, I'm always thinking about because my parents, the family like traditional family ways. I'm always thinking about how to learn when I graduate, how to improve myself. So I keep get my continue like degrees, get my bachelor, get my master degree during that time. And I think the chance is the first chance is 2008. That was the year I decided to learn English. Before that, in China, everyone learn English just for testing. So you get a certified, you can have a degree. So English is kind of a tools for people to get degree. But 2008 is the year I decided to I want to go study abroad at that time. So I relearn English. I try to like speak more. So I joined a club called a Toastmaster. Some of you may heard about, and I think this is also for me. It's a new way of learning. So learning by sharing, and then they have also a very uh, track. I think it's a system for people to improve their communication and leadership. So at that time, I think it's more suit for me because I have a job and then I part time I do deliver speeches, but I also become a president. I also help several club to start several club in Suzhou. So it was a fun journey for me. And in 2010, that was my first time no TED. So my first TED talk is from Adora Kitoro, a 10 years old girl, talking about what adults can learn from kids. That was my first TED talk, and it was very impressive for me. It was like mind changing. So I decided to change my career from a designer to become a teacher. So I quit my job and I joined a training center. First is a training center, become a soft skill trainer at that time, help students to deal with interview, find a job, especially focus on tech, developer, people who want become a programmer, developer. And then most people are recent graduates. So they are they are going to graduate from university, and then they join our training center for several months, let's say 3 months, 4 months, and then they will have a different projects. They work in a team and develop some website or apps kind of things, and then we help them to find job. So my task at that time is help them to um, write about their CVs and how to do project like pitching and how to interview with different kind of stakeholders. So at that time, I started TEDx Suzhou, which is I think is the first experiment, learning experiment at the school. And I initiated TEDx Suzhou at that time. And 2 years later, I initiated a TEDx Youth event. And also I combined the TEDx Youth integrated with a course at the school, a public speaking course. So students will deliver several courses. And then at the course, they are also going to organize a TEDx event, TEDx Youth event. So that was, I think, is the first experimental, and which is very successful at the school. So the school give lots of support, venue, and different kind of support. And after that, 2014, one of my like friends, he want to start a new startup, tech startup. It's a email client. So the reason is 2014, at the end of 2014, Gmail is blocked. Gmail is blocked by, in China, mainland China, so people can't access to Gmail. With Before that, if you have Outlook, you have Foxmail, you have an email client, you can still connect to Gmail. But website, not website. Through email client, you can still connect to Gmail. But 2014, at the end of 2014, suddenly, so no one can connect. And my friends see it's an opportunity. So he started a client. At that time, we call it email chat. So email chat, it's a small tools, and it's an email client. So you can see it's like a mailbox or Spark at that time. And then you can use our client to connect Gmail. So this is our first like features. And I think for 1 month, we have a 100,000 users. We got Gmail users. Most of them are like doing international trade. So people use Gmail every day to deal with their customer. So it's successful. So we got first funding. It's like a 10 million RMBs. We got the first funding, and then we run this company for 2 years. So I quit the job from the school. So teacher, before that, I'm a teacher, and then I joined this company, this startup, became community managers, which I run the community, user community, where we help them to like find more their pain points, and then we help them to solve it. So we have a different pivot. Our product first time is email client, and then we tried Slack, kind of use the email as an ID, but we launched some teamwork features. And also we have a video call, audio calls. So 2 years for that journey. But we didn't find a right like a business model. We tried a membership, but in China everything is free. So we run out of money, and then at the end of 2016, I leave the company, and I became a freelance, became a trainer. I joined a business part-time. I teach in a business school, Schema. It's a French school, so teaching them innovation and entrepreneurship. And then also I started a new community called Design Sprint China, which is another like experimental. We help translate the book Sprint from Google Venture, and we run a community. Most are UX user experience designer, and then we run different activity in China at 2017. So the main theme is called a City 2.0, which we focus on the city problem, and then we go to each city in China, find out their problem, like transportation problems, different problem, and then we gather together 1 day, 2 day to design solution and then to test it, which is successful. So after that, we got several like clients, big companies like Johnson and Johnson, and some pharmaceutical company, different companies hire us to run like a sprint workshop for their internal innovation teams. So that was like around 2 to 3 years. And the last year, because of the COVID, most of like workshop are going to online. And last year, I'm also now involved in another community. I think maybe Nikki knows the BOMA community, and I'm responsible for BOMA institution, which I think is it's focused on transformational leadership, innovation, creative leadership, kind of like help those leaders, C levels, help them to find clues about the future, and then also help them to run some innovation projects in their internal companies. So that's, I think, which is my main focus now, running workshop, and then help big companies to run like TED-like events, like BOMA institution events. Yeah, and also part-time teaching in business school. Yeah, that's like a bio, quick bio.
What an amazing journey. Congratulations. And I'm really excited where BOMA is going. I think it's an amazing, amazing project. A lot of people from the TEDx community are part of it.
Yeah,
Building,
yeah, yeah.
I felt like Laura Stein and Michelle and
Yeah,
Stefan
yeah, yeah.
pulled together
Yes,
with people from Singularity and TED to grow.
yes, singularity. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Tell us a little more about your thoughts on your visions on the future of education.
Yeah, I think, as I said, so there's several experiment. The first experiment is like TEDx, which is like still follow the TED mission. So the youth event, like idea was spreading. First idea was spreading, and also if you think about TEDx youth, it's for youth by youth. So the young people can decide it which topic they want to discover, and they have their all authorities to define the learning, what they want to learn, where they want to learn, and who they want to learn. So I think that's a very unique, especially in China. If you think about in China, everything is settled in education. So you are learning the existing textbook. Everything is decided. You have examination, but TEDx, I think it's kind of a new way people can have their thoughts, especially youth event. So we have a rule for TEDx youth at Suzhou. It's for youth by youth, which means the curator is young people. So they're just organized by themselves. They choose the theme, they organize, and also the speakers. Most of speakers, we hope that it's youth. So they are talking about what their thoughts they're sharing, and I think this is one experimental we did. The other one is from Design Sprint, which from idea was spreading to idea into actions, which is problem based. Uh, we give them some direction. For example, city problems. There's lots of problems in our cities, rubbish, like transportation kind of things. And then also the other example is from UN Sustainable Development Goals, like driveless, and there's different categories. And then the students or the learners first identify the problem around themselves, the local community problem, and then they form a team. They design solutions, and then they validate it. So it's a problem, solution, and validation. If it's successful, we can give them funding. We support them to become a product from a project to a product. And then from the product, maybe it can become a startup if they can go further. So I think this is another experiment which we did also very successful. I teach the course in Schema Business School for 3 years. One course is called From Idea to Market, and then the other is called Launch an Innovation Venture in China. So it's good a combination. They're finding the local problems, but also they can meet the local startups and then to do some connections. And I think so these are for students, and then for companies is also most company now recent days they're running like open innovation projects or their internal innovation projects, which is they are working with startups. So the question is how a big company like Bosch, they have a 300,000 employee, and then how to transform this company become a startup, like they can run like a big startup. So this is kind of question where we're experimental. Actually, 2 years ago, they started a new project called a Connect Factory. So they launched different sites in startup areas. So from their company to a startup, and then they are designing their structure. Like these people are outside of their main company, they can run more faster. The other thing is they can work with startups to together. It can be more flexible for them. Yeah.
What do you see as the biggest challenge in education in China today?
I think the thing is we have so many students, and then most universities are still follow the old like examine based, which is the knowledge or the things they're teaching is not suitable for the market, the need. So there's gap. So especially for university. So university and then companies. And then the students, recent graduate students, most recent graduate students didn't have the suitable skill for the employee they need. And I think that's one of the biggest challenge. So there's lots of company nowadays are running like training center to solve this problem. The other way is creativity for kids. So like Sir Robinson, there's one TED Talk, School Kill Creativity, which is very true. And I think most like primary school are STEM, like one example is STEM is very popular in China now. Parents have the sensibility, and then they are giving their kids like a different way to help them to get more creative minds.
I had a conversation yesterday with Edmund Tendon, who is an educator in Denmark, and we spoke about the fact that the role of school might be just to create the foundation so everyone agrees that 1 + 1 is 2, but it's just a question that should take 12 years to implement this kind of, we're all talking about the same thing, foundation, before we start building on something else. And I thought it was an interesting thought of like how much those schooling, how much can we shorten that foundation, that requirement where we go into, yeah, we're examined, we're going to this all structured, it's boring, it's annoying, we have to go through, kind of survive it, go through it, and then life can begin. How can we just shrink this down to a shorter period? Because there seems to be something in it that makes sense, right? Because I mean, it has educated us for 250 years and not developed only idiots. So there must be something that's not only bad. But maybe the problem is not that it's 12 years, or the problem is that it's 12 years. Maybe we can just shrink it down and start um, exploring the world a little earlier. Because I think that a lot of conversation that we have today are more into, you should have specific knowledge and not general knowledge. But I think
Yeah,
general knowledge is a good foundation, right? There's this so-called handbook of useless knowledge. And
yeah,
wherever you go in evenings and people are good with useless knowledge, others gravitate to them. So they seem to be a social magnet just because of the fact they know so many things that are worthless knowledge. They seem not to be so worthless. It's kind of, and I would love to open the floor. We have some really big educators in the room, like Marcus. He's designed, I think, 300 schools in the UK, and
yeah, yeah,
I'd love to see your opinion here as well. And I think it's good to have this kind of general foundation. I think it's good to have some chapters of the handbook of useless knowledge with your life, because it seems to be, you never know when you need it. It seems to be not only bad, but on the other hand, being specific and be really, really good at something seems to be the recipe for future success, because that's what you stand for, that's your niche. And wherever you go, shall it be TikTok or shall it be Instagram, and wherever you go with the social media that's growing so insanely, Clubhouse just tripled their user count in a month. Everyone's saying,
yeah,
like, know your niche, stand for something, be very specific. Let people know where and when shall they call you, and be very specific. And I think it's kind of a pendulum going back to the other extreme. I don't know what you think about this. And also, I'd like to invite Marcus to kind of add on to this thought and open up the floor here.
yeah.
Yeah, Jade, I was going to give, so I'm also part of the TED community, of course, and I host a number, and I've spoken at quite a few. But I was talking to Nikki about giving a talk in Klagenfurt, and I was going to call it "The Trouble with Education is Teachers." Actually, I was going to say the problem with education is teachers, and then I was going to make it the reason why education is messed up is because of teachers. But I decided to be politically okay and made a mistake, and instead of said the trouble with education is the fucking teachers, I moved back, and it seems to me that what has happened. So Nikki's talking about 250. Actually, most of the education processes which we use are only about 100 years old, maybe 130, which is the time when we decided that we were going to outsource education to qualified educators. And that's really happened in the UK really heavily in the last 50 years. And so in the UK at the moment, state education, so that's education which is provided by the state for free, can only be delivered by people who have qualified as teachers. And in the qualification of teachers, it's effectively saying in our country, at the age of 20, you have to decide to become a teacher. And then you get trained in what teaching is all about. And so we have a community of teachers who have no experience or little experience of the world for which they're preparing young people. So we have a big gulf. We have the gulf of teachers who are 1% of the population, who are in a subset of people who've done okay at school and qualified as teachers, preparing young people for life in the world of the other 99%, which when you look at it statistically, it doesn't make sense. And so we have teachers who validate each other's success based upon examinations, which tend to be knowledge, not skills, not the application of knowledge, just simply the ability to remember knowledge. And so I'm intrigued because in non-state schools, that requirement doesn't exist. So Jade, you could perfectly well teach any subject at all in a private school in the UK, but not in a state school.
Mm.
So is it any surprise that private schools do much better than state schools? Much better in terms of creating people who want to use what they've got. Now, part of that is because of parents and all the rest of it. But I'm intrigued in your experience of what you've said about TED Youth, and I agree, and what is going on. So from your take of what is happening, if you could wave a magic wand and say, all right, we've got 1 billion people who are in the age now when they're developing themselves, and then they're going to make the world better for the other 7 billion of us, how would you suggest we prepare them?
I think maybe thanks for Marcus for your sharing. I totally agree what would you say, and maybe I can give one example, which is my formal leaders, like my supervisors. He recently started a new school for kids from 6 to 18, and he's focused on his dream is to find out or to help China to foster their scientists like Nobel Prize kind of things, engineering. So what he did is he think that if you want to become a researcher or become a scientist, um, if you just go to university, until you go to university, you started to do such things, it's too late. So you have to start at very young age, and then you have to deep dive. So what they did, they focused on very specific topic, computer science, and then they are starting the age of 6, help these kids to learn what it is programming at this like C++, and help them to learn algorithm kind of things. If there's some kids have some talents, they really enjoy what they're learning, and then they can keep going. So it's like a pyramid. So you start at very young age, and then if you find out your passion, you can go up. There is a competition in China, and then if they, so for those kids, few, maybe not all of them, maybe just the 1% of them can go to the top. And then at the high school, when they graduate from high school, their ability, I think he said, is already above those like graduating students. So this, I think this is maybe one way which is personalized the education. We need to like standardize. If we think about in China, we have every year that this year it's like 10 million people graduate from high school, and then not all of them will go to universities because of the resources kind of things. So, but for the top, if you were think about next, like scientists, those people do great things, break through something. So they have to very personalized. They have to get into the research in a very early age. So I think maybe personalize is a kind of way. There's two track. One is to the top. Those top people, very talented people, they need to personalize. And also for some people below the average, they're not like bad kids. They just didn't fit the education system. So we need also to think about how help them. So I think that maybe the two ways, the top way and then the below the average way, is kind of those maybe first young people will experiment personalized education in China, because now the parents have I mean, the economic is getting higher, so the educational funding is getting higher. The society, the parents' family have the money, have the resources, can provide those resources for them.
Jade, so I'm based in London, and when we look at China, so from the lens of a small group of people, so me and people in the UK, and me in the UK, so I'm not talking about everybody, me in the UK. When I think of China, I think of a huge mass of people where some living in certain areas are dynamic, future thinking, really hardworking, really, really, really focused. And so part of me is thinking, well, what about the ones who haven't achieved that focus yet? And then I think of a huge number of people who are almost third world. Now, now I may be entirely wrong. And so, we hear stuff about the authoritarianism of the state imposition of stuff.
Yeah.
So we hear all sorts of things. And for some of us, China is this weird place where on one side, you've got freedom and dynamism and people doing amazing things. On the other side, you've got this harsh, brutal regime. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
What is it like? Really?
So I think because last year is, if you heard about last year is the final year. It's like a battle. President Xi raised a battle to fight for poverty. So which means last year, all from Chinese standards lies, all people are above the poverty line. So last year, that's the country statement. And we have a few experiments. At BOMA we did one event for the Chinese the media, the biggest media, the central media, and then they have events called My Countryside, which is we invited the leader of the country. There's it's like a project. Like President Xi said, we need to do this, and then there's few places they're still below the poverty line. So the government nominate people from Beijing, like those big state-owned companies, nominate one person for this village, the other for that village. So what we do is we invite them to share a talk and talk how they solve the problems. So basically, it's people's mind. It's about education. Poverty is always about education. So it's not about because people are below become poverty. Sometimes it's the physical, maybe healthcare kind of thing, but most is their minds. There's one example is in China. There's very rural places. We call them because they from their like collectors. So primary communities become a social, so there is big leap from the primary people still living in the village. They collect their food, like food collectors kind of things. and then become a communism kind of thing. So the big leap. And then these people didn't understand why we need money, why I need to work. So they can't understand that things. So it's a very, so the leader have to like educate them. And I think this it's an interesting story. But true, in China, we have a it's a united country, but in the market, we say it's a united country, but it's a divided market. If you see China, like Shanghai, Beijing, it's around the seashore. The market is it's like a developed country. But in China, there's lots huge, like developing, or it's very rural areas. There's still a lot of things to improve. But I think um, well, I'm positive guy because I see a lot of change happen when I was grow up. Everything I experience is getting better, getting better. So I think there's still lots of in the rural area. There are lots of, especially teachers. They're not enough qualified teacher there, so they can have a qualified education. And I believe that we they still have a long way to go, but I think it's getting better. So and also some like tech companies like mobile. So let's take example mobile phones. Even very rural areas, people still have can connect to internet. They can use their mobile phones, and then there's some. So there's like a if you heard about Taobao, so the e-commerce like Amazon in China, and then they have called a Taobao Village, which means those people in a rural area, and then if they have some skills, they can produce, they can grow fruits, one specific fruits, and then they can sell the fruits to the over like all over the China through the e-commerce. So this is a changing, I think changing the way of working. So for people living in the rural area, they have different choice to choose. It's not always go to the big city, have a nice job, get like bachelor degrees. So they are very specific on one area. There's one example is there's Van Village. It's called a 3D village, 3D printing village. So one of the leaders, I think maybe 10 years ago, they see this 3D printing as a change, like a trend in the world. So they adopted this skill. And then most kids in that village learn how to do this. So they're working. If you're thinking about 3D printing and then you want massive produce products, so that village is the center. So it's become very popular. And then most of the kids in that village, they learn how to operate these machines. They became experts, even though they don't have a university degrees. Yeah.
So without, Nikki, do you mind if I, one last question then for you, Jade, is from what we have seen of the incredible growth of China over the last, I guess, 20 years, you seem to be saying or implying, or I'm getting, that this is just the beginning.
Yeah, just the beginning. I think it's just the beginning. Yeah. Yeah.
So Jade,
yeah.
if you had to put a prediction into the future, how long will it be, do you think, before what we have seen as the growth of the cities around the seaboards becoming, this is China, which is a super powerful powerhouse of ideas to expectation to products to getting it out there, and then moving into being one of the pioneers of social engineering and being one of the pioneers of sustainability. When would you see, is that 10 years away, 20 years away? What would you think?
I think, thanks for asking, Marcus. I think it depends on how we define the things. And from my perspective, everything is it's getting, it's getting in the right directions. So it depends on our standardize how to define. One example is Shanghai. 2 years ago, Shanghai started to like sorry, uh, rubbish sorting, which means dry and wet. So, and from Shanghai, and my hometown is Suzhou, so which is close to Shanghai, which now is also getting this, I mean, become a required. So we need to at least dry and wet, so rubbish, dry and wet. And then also every community have a morning time and the evening time. So the 2 hours you have to through this one, and then people will monitoring, take pictures of that. So it's getting that ways. And I think it's also, I mean, in China, because the standard, like is it every city should become Shanghai? Maybe not really, because I think we're trying, like for example, Chongqing. Chongqing is a city called a mountain city, so they have a different cultures in Chongqing. I have never been there, but I have friends who is from Chongqing, so they are doing very different about their economy and people there, like more arts. And Chongqing is also very interesting. Chongqing is have the most population in China, over 30 million people. The biggest, not Shanghai, not Beijing. Yeah. So they have called a mountain city culture. They're running mountain city culture. If you have a chance to visit China, go to Chongqing, experience. It's totally different from Shanghai and Beijing and Guangzhou. So I think it's in the right directions. I think President Xi did a few great things. He did lots of reform, and then some directions like sustainability, like fight against poverty, like the reform in the military. There's a lot of like a recent big challenge, used to be very big challenge, but now we see that it's in the right direction. Although for some it's smooth, not huge, not transform in one day, but it's getting better, smooth. But I think it's for sustainability, maybe the government have some timeline. They have some agenda. Like for example, electric cars, e-cars, should maybe 10 years, 10 years or 15 years, should be half in China.
Wow.
One example.
Wow.
Jade, I have a question before we hit the top of the hour, if that's okay for you. I'd like to switch gears a little, because we talk a lot about educating on skills. And
yeah.
When I was in China for the first time, which is about 20 years ago, it was still clear that the individual doesn't count a lot. It was very hierarchical.
Yeah.
I'm curious how much part of the education and what you see, where you see China today when we talk about soft skills, when we talk about the skills of social intelligence, the ability to navigate in social environments. Public speaking, for example, is one of the soft skills.
Yes. Communication.
How much is soft skills an issue that's actually also being educated, and how much would you see that if I would come to China and said, hey, I'd like to talk about the skills of social intelligence, I'd like to talk about soft skills, people would actually listen and go like, no, we're not soft skills focused, we're we're tasks and hard skills focused.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Nikki. I think so. From my point of views, so because in a Western, like I mentioned, Toastmasters, I think soft skills sometimes is related to culture. Like sometimes the religions, people, if you see Western people, they go to church every week, and then they talk to people, kind of things. And in China, actually, we have a cultural revolution, which is lack of the things. So for the soft skill, I think um, normal school still very focused on it's very different for Shanghai, Suzhou, like a city developed city. They their teacher have the sense, and for inner China still very lack of the kind of training. And I think maybe in the future, uh, I'm thinking about solve this problem from nonprofit. Maybe we need more and more non-profit to do that things. One example is there's lots of like Accenture. They're running a project with Save the Child Foundation, and then they are bringing design thinking course into some like lack of resources schools. Those schools for immigrants, like big cities, and then parents move there, and then their kids in not in a normal school, but they have also very small school, and then the lack of the um, like resources. And then I think for that we need like nonprofit, like the nonprofit to solve that problems. Yeah.
So if I'd come to Shanghai
Yeah.
and let's build a program on growing soft skills with
Yeah,
people.
yeah, yeah. We need that project. Lots kind of. I think China is a big market. If we see social impact, there's lots of things we can do in China in education, in the social impact.
Would you be down doing this together?
Yeah, sure, sure. I'd love to.
Let's do it.
My passion is, yeah.
Cool. Any more questions? Niall, Bogdan, Nicole. I guess Jan is already being Jonathan is already being prepared to swim with the dolphins.
Yeah. No?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
had
no.
a question. It was more related to some of the work you're doing in innovation as well, Jade. I mean, you know, it's fascinating to hear about China and what you've done in the past and what you're doing now. And you know, I think I mentioned at the beginning. So a lot of the work I do is with corporates actually. And interestingly, what you were saying, I firmly believe that it's the non-profit, the corporates have to fill that gap currently, at least between, you know, what the education system isn't delivering, and not just in their in-house training programs, but through some of their non-profit activities. And you know, there's some good examples in the UK of that at the moment. But just on this idea of the, you know, you mentioned about the culture of innovation, and that's a real challenge to try to build that. You know, you're talking about Bosch, very difficult to get 300,000 people thinking in that way. That speaks very strongly to me, actually. It's a real challenge. Do you have any perspectives on that? Any examples of how that, maybe signs of that being done effectively in some of the companies in China or organizations that you've seen and worked with?
Yeah. Thanks, Neil, for the question. I think there's term. A few years ago, we organized an event called Open Innovation, and it's like a concept, which means if you're talking about innovation, some big corporates were thinking about within the company, which means they're inviting their company, they're launching their company, and for big companies, they have a lot of research, R&D every year, lots of money, but they lack of the ability to productize or like market those things. But startup have the like natural, they're born to experiment kind of things. So I think the future is big companies need to work with startups. So there's different way to create the kind of things, like there's lots of accelerator. they run accelerating projects, and then they work with big companies, they work with startups. They are like a hub, and the big company launch their challenge, and like incubator accelerators, they recruit people from startups, and then they're working together to solve the big companies problems, and maybe if successful, it could become a new product or become a new startups. So this is maybe I see in future, maybe there's lots of kind of the things like this. And then the other way is for big companies, like Fortune 5 companies, I think they are running lots of projects within their companies. I know there's the innovation department recent years. It's a new department. Maybe they have a different stakeholders from, and then they form a team. They're running different projects. So this is also, they run workshops. I work with several big companies. They have headquarters, and then one person, like innovation, kind of innovation leaders. And what his job is to organize workshop around the world. So the purpose is collect like ideas from different sides, and then they can form together, see something good. The company, the headquarter will give like resources to them. So this is another ways. I think most of the big company are running now. So there's two ways. For me, I think the formal way is the future accelerator. There's a third party running accelerator, and then they can work with a big company to see the work with them. But also they know the startup, they know the market.
Yes, yeah. That's a very good. Thank you. And I think it's then going beyond that core of people who are in that accelerator or that open innovation project, or at least trying to bring people that would not normally be engaged in those projects into the discussions, so it affects their thinking as well, way beyond just those core people. I think that's one of the challenges that I see with corporates. It's going beyond that sort of 1% of people in these projects to the 99% that probably are not that exposed to that way of thinking and working, and it's not easy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So maybe I'm also curious because our group is very diverse. Nikki know lots of people in. So how did you see? I mean, because of the COVID, China now, I think recently, especially last year, from my point of view, we are running smoothly. So the government, I think, so there's good side and bad side. The privacy side, we have a code, green, yellow, and red. If you heard about this story, so everyone need show the code, and then the code linked to your mobile phone, and the mobile phone, well, the government can track every mobile phone, so which the algorithm can know which is green, which is yellow, which is red. So I don't know how's your like image about China, especially the last year and this year. What do you see is your perspective, or if you want to work with Chinese company, or what's your opinion? Yeah.
I actually consider going there, doing exactly what I just mentioned. I think that the soft skills training is something where I can contribute to the Chinese culture right now, because that's my passion. I'm doing a lot of trainings on skills of social intelligence and soft skills, human interactions, navigating social environments. I'm passionate about how humans are treating each other. This program is playing forward, right? You're contributing to this program. We have, I don't know, 18 tours, so about 150 speakers on YouTube who contributed to this program since I transformed it from on-premise tours to virtual tours a year ago with the non-mission critical travel bans, when I got $80,000 in cancellations in 4 days because no one could travel anymore. So I started with the virtual thing, and it creates so much international content. I feel like here's something I'm passionate about, and I think going to China would be a good time to for me now. I just secured the schoolofwesternculture.com.
Great, welcome. Yeah, we can talk more about that. Yeah.
How about
has, yeah, I think
as I told you before, I'm involved in the field of innovation and intellectual property together with Johan. Actually, Johan just sent me a message saying that he jumped in the water to swim with the dolphins. So yeah, so something like that is being what.
wow.
Yeah, but anyway, about 10 years ago, I've seen a page turning in the field of innovation. Of course, a long time ago, I remember we had an image of China like they were in a trend of copying. And now actually, China is a leader in terms of innovation. China only produces every year more patent applications than all Europe, together with other major players in that field. So it became a trend, a reference. And today, in order to examine a patent application, it is essential to take into account the publications coming from China. So it became a reference in that field. And I think we are not always aware of those implications. And I wonder if the mentalities in Western countries are ready for this major change. And I think your presentation today goes really in that direction. Perhaps one aspect the education should focus more in the future is the entrepreneurial spirit. I'm French citizen. Sorry. I was born in Romania, but in both countries, compared to the Netherlands, for instance, there is a lack of self-confidence in terms of entrepreneurial spirit. And I think that this aspect is something which should be improved very quickly in our countries. That's somewhere where, together with Johan, we try to bring something to the system, and at least to the communities around us. Thank you for your presentation.
My pleasure. If you need some more information, you can connect me on LinkedIn or through Nikki. So if you want to know more about China, yeah.
Jade, I'm also marshal of time, and we've already surpassed the top of the hour, and I don't want to abuse your capacity. Thank you so much for this amazing session.
Nikki, just one. So Jade,
yeah.
I've been looking at this for some time. You know what this one is?
It's a red book. It's kind of like a culture kind of things, culture book.
Yeah, it's the Thought of Chairman Mao. It's his. It's the red book, and I have to tell you,
red book. I know that.
It's really good.
It's in Chinese or in English?
I'm afraid it's in English, and it's a bit. I guess the translation's probably a bit shitty. I don't quite know what the translation is, but there's some very good stuff in here. And it sounds to me as if the development of China, we could go back and read this, and it's sort of, a lot of it's come true. Amazing. It talks about poverty and elimination in the cities, and extraordinary. It's a real prediction.
Jade, I think you've just grown your network to a few people in Europe. I'm connecting you all sessions recorded. You can revisit the recording. We should talk about the School of Western Culture. We should have a conversation, because I'm literally ready to change site and go places. And if Shanghai or where you are is the place to grow this, I'm totally down for it. And that's a separate conversation. But for now, sorry for running over time. Thank you so much for this. That was amazing.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
All the very best, and see you soon.
Yeah, pleasure all mine. It's great to meet you all. Good.